Welcome to another edition of the 49er Goldcast.
San Francisco, are you ready? Welcome to another edition of the 49er Goldcast. This is the Bay Area Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis I, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Old Man Davis.
Bam! All right, guys, week 2 is over and done with, and it was a doozy. It was kind of a tough one. Would you agree with that, Ray?
Oh, yeah. Losses are never fun. And rather than take everyone back down the road of the excruciating blowout loss, we're just going to go right into the aftermath and pull out as much good as we can.
Absolutely. Old Man Davis, I'm sure you were rejoicing.
No, I actually want to do a recap that pulls only nothing but the best of the game. So when you guys are ready, I'll go ahead and give my thoughts.
All right, sounds good. Let's start, Raymond. We're going to start with you. I want to start with the negative. One of the biggest focuses, what's the one thing I've been hammering from preseason all the way to now, is that offensive line. Let's talk a little bit about what happened. What went wrong there?
They had a game plan that Pittsburgh was ready for, and the coaches did not do a very admirable job adjusting to that. They got countered right out of the gate, and the coaching staff did not have a counter answer to that. Yeah. And as a result, they just struggled for pretty much 4.5 quarters. Pretty hard to come out of that when you're kind of force-feeding a game plan that's already been thwarted.
Old Man Davis?
So much to say. So little time. The vertical game was on point. I knew it was like my game. Antonio Brown led the game, picking apart that 49ers secondary. 9 catches for 195 yards. God bless him. Remember that name, Antonio Brown.
Who?
Antonio Brown. And I want you two little boys to acknowledge me. You don't have answers to any of my questions like the 49ers didn't for the Steelers. This defensive line front was untested. That 49ers O-line wasn't breaking itself apart, allowing the Steelers into the backfield far too often. No control of the line of scrimmage. I mean, the best decisions number 7 made was either throwing the ball away or jailbreak. The best play he had was that 75-yard touchdown pass to Torrey Smith to make it 36-18.
Which is a heck of a throw.
There's no answers. Chief Chris knew so. He knew so Saturday night. And all he could do was just get a good night rest.
Colin Kaepernick killed it. What are you talking about?
Oh, you know what? Stop.
33 for 46. 335 yards.
Drop the pride. Just
rating.
Drop the pride. In 3 quarters, only 2 successful drives producing only 3 points. Your red zone was out to lunch.
That's not all Kaepernick's fault.
Cap played a great game. No doubt about that.
That's probably the biggest positive you can take away from this.
Fellas, the bullshit is getting thick in this room.
No. We're not saying that the 49ers didn't have a bad game. We're not saying that the 49ers didn't get their ass kicked. None of that is being contested. The only point of contention that I have is pretending that Cap didn't have a great game. Cap did everything he could with virtually no support. That was one of the best positives to take away from the game. Cap actually put the team on his back for once.
Rudy,
and
Justin Timberlake calling for you. He wants you to cry on a river.
What's that have to do with anything?
What it has to do with me just saying this. Congratulations to Coach Mike Tomlin and the Steelers for the win against the 49ers. Doing it at home in Pittsburgh, Heinz Field. They showed up. They settled in. They spent 10 days of reevaluation, and they played as if week 1 didn't even bother them. You guys are talking about how such a great game it was for number 7. You didn't have the will to win. You wanted it, but you weren't even close.
Cap had it. He's just supporting casted. Offensive line wasn't blocking. Run game was shot. And by the time they finally put some drives together, it was already too late. I think the coaching just did not do a good job adjusting to the Steelers defense. And that's the biggest problem I saw, was that they got out-coached. When you look at game to game, Minnesota to Pittsburgh, it came down to coaching and execution, because the game plan, like I said, already the Steelers knew what was coming. Zone block running scheme, a short passing game. So they said, all right, we're going to take away the run and force them to pass deep. which they had both covered. They were playing a lot of dime, so they took away the deep threat. And the problem was the Niners were not executing in the middle of the field, on everything underneath. Bolden had a drop. Davis had a drop. It's really hard to get anything going when the guys that you need to pull through are not even pulling their weight. And there weren't even like hard balls to catch. They were right on the numbers.
Here's the thing about the 49er game, that it was really tough to watch. I get what everyone's saying. I get what Old Man Davis is saying. I get what you're saying, Ray. But regardless, it was so difficult to see the opposite, the worst possible outcome happen before my eyes. The one we were all afraid of. The one we were afraid of, the alternate universe where we step into where the 49ers just completely suck and they get their asses handed to them. That's the universe we stepped into in week 2. And I wasn't expecting it. It was like watching the 49ers just run straight into a brick wall. They just got on that train, and the last stop was a cliff all the way off. Down we go. It was just a series of bad decisions put together. And that part was just the most frustrating part. That was probably the most frustrating part for me, was to see my team just get ripped apart by the Pittsburgh Steelers, the only other team, them and the Cowboys. There's only 3 teams. Do you listen now, faithful? There are only 3 teams sitting at the big boy table. Number 1, unfortunately, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And tied for number 2 are those effing Dallas Cowboys and beautiful San Francisco 49ers. Those are the only 3 teams sitting at the big boy table. So to get handed this kind of a loss from the other team, one of the other teams at the big boy table, God, that makes it hurt even more, just a little bit. It's not like we play the Steelers very often. I feel like we never see those guys. So just, dagger right in my heart.
That terrible, terrible D. Ain't that right, Rudy? But you can only say that about the black and yellow. So you know what? Just go back home to wherever you came from, huh? Crawling back in that hole that you came from. Go ask your dad for some Kleenex, all right, boy? Because you better wipe your ass, all right? It's just as drippy as your nose.
Oh, no. No one's denying that the 49ers didn't have a bad game.
All right, it's just going to continue.
One person did have a really good game, though. That was Kaep. He was making his reads. He was going through his progressions. He was scrambling. He was making throws. He was 71% accurate on his attempts, 33 for 46. He made over 70% of all his throws and had over 300 yards. I mean, we thought he looked good last game, and that was just kind of a snippet of the progress he's made throughout the offseason. But the game, he played like an elite quarterback. He played like Rodgers. He didn't play like Luck. Luck ran out of luck today.
Luck's played a lot of luck.
He played like a Pro Bowl quarterback. He had fire in his eyes. He didn't give up until the very last second was snapped. And the problem was nobody else really had that same kind of fire, and they were kind of beat up and drained by that point. But Kaep just kept playing. He kept playing, and he by the end of the game, he did put a couple scores on the board.
I only saw one quarterback that's worth talking about, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. All right?
I saw 2.
So, Raymond, here's a question I have for you. Now, we have one game against, obviously, a much weaker opponent, the Minnesota Vikings. And we have a 49er team that does very successful. Then we have the 49ers on the road in Pittsburgh against a much stronger opponent. And they underperformed. In general, most of the team plays pretty terrible. You said they get out-coached. So here's the question for all the Goldcast listeners, all the faithful. Going forward, what can we expect? Do we expect week 1 49ers? Can we expect week 2 49ers? Do we expect something in the middle? Where do we go from here, and what exactly do you think we're going to see? We've got Arizona next week. The schedule doesn't get any easier.
I think we're going to see a mixture of in between, because the opponents are really going to test not only the coaching but the youth within the 49ers roster, and that's going to be the difference maker. I do think they're going to get better as the season progresses, but right now in these early goings, especially against stronger opponents, the Niners are really going to be tested, and it's really going to be up to a combination of obviously the players and the coaches to respond well. And we obviously responded well in week 1, but that was to an opponent that was below 500 last year. So I honestly didn't expect much from them. But when I saw the matchup this week against Pittsburgh, I really was expecting to see a game plan that revolved around the passing game. And we didn't see that. We saw a similar game plan versus last week. And Pittsburgh was ready for that. I felt like it was way too predictable. And as a result, Jeep Chris was not as creative and wasn't mixing it up as well. And I get it. You want your rhythm to help establish that. Otherwise, you're just kind of stuck. But I just kind of saw them force feeding this game plan that just was not working. And it just got progressively worse. And when that happens, I think it needs to be not necessarily abandoned, but adjusted early on to minimize the damage, because by the time we were at halftime, it was already down 29 points. So I kind of put this one on the coaching. In addition to the players' execution, because the offensive line didn't play great. Eric Pierce got beat. He got beat bad. They allowed 5 sacks, so it was kind of a role reversal here. The Niners allowed themselves to get dominated, much like the Vikings did, and they did not have an answer to adjust to. So when that happens, yeah, things are going to be difficult. But, I mean, in the long term, I think you can expect a kind of a mixture of the two with them getting better. On the super positive side, you can expect Colin Kaepernick to get better as he has shown here. Even in the face of a substantial defeat, he still played excellent, and he is clearly gotten better with all of that off-season training that he did.
Absolutely.
It certainly is paying off, and we can certainly expect it to get better. And Torrey Smith and him both kind of voiced their opinions to the coaching staff to let them know that, hey, it was really good to get a couple scores and to build more rapport, even though we lost. And this is something that needs to be utilized. And I think the coaches didn't even realize that Cap had some of this in him. I think they knew the potential was there, but they finally got to see it executed in a real game scenario versus, OTAs and preseason.
Oh, man, Davis, your thoughts. We see two different teams, obviously a dominant 49ers against a weaker opponent, and then we see the 49ers get manhandled by a stronger opponent. What do you expect to see going forward?
I expect to see not a week 1 football team, not a week 2 49er team, but I'm expecting a very solid 2004 season San Francisco 49er team show up in week 3. I'm expecting Dennis Erickson to possibly come out of the locker room and join hands with Jim Tomsula in creating a formidable force against the Arizona Cardinals in week 3. And I think it's definitely going to be a whoop-ass for the 49ers, indeed.
So we've won one of our 2 games for the year?
Yes. And now, in all seriousness, it doesn't look good. I see a secondary that's been exposed by week 2, and the rest of the schedule shows nothing but teams looking at video footage after footage of just how to beat them in the vertical game.
They're going to need to address it, that's for sure.
Coach Eric Mangini has a lot of work ahead of him, and if he can't find the solution quick, the offense is really going to have to find ways of scoring points early in that first half, because I don't see the defense sustaining itself for 4 quarters, especially if you're having opponents throughout this season where they're going to pass heavy, knowing that the secondary can't support itself, let alone stay with the receivers that they're playing against.
Well, Antonio Brown is quite the exception. He's arguably the best or the top 2 receiver in the NFL.
Ray,
not many of those guys in the league. In fact, there's only 2.
And that's why I say you did and you will remember his name. Something else I want to tell you guys. I won big in Vegas. 6 points or more, Brad? You're damn right. Just win, baby.
Yeah, you did. I was going to point that out. Oh, well, we want to do our Derek Carr, Colin Kaepernick watch. Cap's still winning.
By a pretty large margin.
How about by a team that depends on him to lead? That department you're vacant in.
We already had a discussion that, first of all, that you can't
First of all,
you can't quantify
Let's
that.
talk money. Let's talk money, baby, because that's all I'm here for, just the money. I won in Vegas. The betting lines, I was over 6 points. Ray, you didn't even know what the you were talking about.
So I do not take that bet. I take the Niners by 14.
Sorry, wrong guess. Would you like to go for double jeopardy where the scores can really change?
All right? You said that the Niners were going to win, and they lost.
Yeah.
They got their asses handed to them.
And said, you know
They
what?
didn't come out with a passing game. That was their biggest fault. They should have came out passing versus running. When the run's not working, then you need to go turn to the pass to set up the run. You don't just keep force-feeding the run to try to set up the pass, and that was the biggest mistake on the coaching side of the football. And the Niners didn't do that. You've got to adjust. Bill Walsh himself even said, if your run cannot set up your pass, then you need to pass to set up the run. Simple as that. And they didn't do that.
Boom!
Oh, by the way, Kaepernick threw for 71% completion percentage. Even that eclipses Carr's 65.2% completion percentage. And he threw a pick. And he had a better passer rating than Carr. And he lost, all in spite of a loss. Interesting.
The only thing that we need to talk about, Derek Carr.
No more stiff arms?
All right, gentlemen, moving on. So there is another team that also isn't necessarily having the best go at it. The two-time Super Bowl appearing one-time champions, the Seattle Seahawks. They lost to the Green Bay Packers this week. And Aaron Rodgers, in all his humility, tweeted,
God was a Packers fan tonight.
What do you
Nice
guys?
one.
That was pretty good. Man, Russell Wilson just cannot get a break this year. He really can't. This has been
He's trolling himself. He's setting himself up to get trolled hardcore.
so bad.
He got trolled in week 1. He got trolled again.
This is now, we've gone from the recovery water to the 1-0 prediction that fell flat to now Aaron Rodgers mocking him with his constant testaments to God choosing his football team. What a punch in the nuts.
He had that Russell Wilson smirk on his face as he said that.
I picture Aaron Rodgers crying on the field with all the microphones in his face. God was a Packers fan tonight.
They interview him after the game immediately as he's still on the field in his uniform, and he's got nothing but tears in his eyes, thanking God, looking up in that Wisconsin sky.
He goes, God, if you can hear me, I'm so proud of you for being on our side tonight.
Not that California cheese, but that Wisconsin cheese.
That Wisconsin cheese. I like how Aaron Rodgers sounds like Mickey Mouse.
This is a high-pitched Aaron Rodgers doing direct TV.
Hi, I'm Aaron Rodgers. And I'm Mickey Mouse Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, how do you feel? Well, I feel like we did great. I really felt like the defense played great. The offense was awesome. They really came through for me. I really got a sense that God was on our side tonight. I could feel his divine presence flowing through my hands and the ball as the game progressed. And I could feel God's divine presence leaving Russell Wilson. It was like a swooshing sound, like a swoosh as he flew away. As he flew away from Russell Wilson, he just floated away from that side of the field over to our side of the field. It's definitely not his year. I think at some point, it's probably the best thing for Russell Wilson to do is even though he didn't have anything to do with getting trolled this week in terms of anything he said, I think the best thing to do for Russell Wilson is to just put the Twitter gun down and just play some football. Put the Twitter gun down. Put it down, baby. It's okay. Put it down. It's okay. It's going to be okay. We're all going to make it.
I said last week, I'll say it again. Less fingers texting your thoughts, Russell, and more about leading your team, knowing that your defense is in chaos, and just winning some games. Just win some games. Just win one game.
You got about an 11% chance to make the playoffs when you start 0-2.
Man.
It's 23 teams of 204 that have started 0-2. Only 23 have made the playoffs.
I swear to you, it must be his girlfriend that's driving him crazy right now. He's not able to even perform the same way that he bursted into the league with. Nothing like that.
But you know what Mickey said about girls?
Women weaken legs.
All right, gentlemen. Next topic of the evening. Apparently, I'm not sure what's happening in Santa Clara. I thought these tickets were so astronomically expensive that nobody could afford it. But apparently, the worst version of San Francisco fan is the only person that can afford a ticket to Levi's Stadium, there have been so many brawls that the Santa Clara City Council is considering banning second half alcohol sales at 49er games. What do you guys think about this? There was another article today all about the violence about 49er fans, how 49er fans have been so violent lately. There's another article all about it, and I've seen a couple different videos of fistfights happening between fans. What do you guys think?
I think people are trying to emulate Chris Culliver, Ray McDonald, and Alden Smith.
Their influence extends further than they realize.
Yes. Tremendous impact.
I saw that article and I just said to myself the same exact thing the police chief had mentioned, that it probably won't make a difference if you were to ban second half alcohol serving.
They're already plastered from the tailgate.
You're still going to get the same amount of arrests as you would
at an Oakland game.
You son of a bitch.
They should forfeit the stadium back to San Francisco. And then they'll clean up this whole mess.
I get it. So what 49er fans are doing is they're physically protesting until their stadium is returned back to San Francisco.
That's right. No one is safe until we get the stadium back in the city.
It's more the Malcolm X road, not so much the MLK road. That's more the Malcolm X road.
By any means necessary.
Any means necessary. You know what I think's happened, personally? My belief is that some Raider fans have defected, and they've gone over to our pretty new stadium, and now they're punching everyone in the face there.
They're trying to sniff out Chris Borland. Where are you at?
You know what Sourdough Sam thinks? He thinks that the Oakland Raiders, they're trying to poison the 49er fans with Raider juice. And that's not going to happen. All they said is something fit, 73%.
All right.
Exactly what I say. And that ends the Levi Stadium.
Ray, did you understand, Old Man Davis? Did any of you understand the last 5 syllables he said?
Pretty sure he was drunk off sourdough.
If you're going to want me to continue on this Goldcast, you need to get that man off the mic.
Old Man Davis, don't take it so personal. He's kind of funny.
He's hilarious as a mascot, because it just goes to show you how synonymous that is to the 49ers play on the field. Yeah. Hilarious.
Oh, he's got jokes, Ray. Old Man Davis got jokes this week.
He's got jokes.
Funny guy. All right, gentlemen. Moving on to our final segment of the evening. It's all about that money.
That grass.
That cream.
Them dime sacks.
Them dime bags.
Them vegetables.
That grasshopper.
String beans.
Them geckos. Caterpillars.
Oregano.
Frogs.
Turtlebacks.
Basil.
Sprouts.
Lime. Cabbage. Kale. Tea leaves.
Algae.
Paleo diet.
Alligators.
Toads.
Zucchini.
Moldy apples.
Fried green tomatoes.
Green bananas.
Pesos.
Moolah.
Ching ching.
Gold.
Adjective for currency.
Sounds like currency, but isn't.
Makes rattling sound that coins make.
$dollar bill, y'all.
All right. Here we go. So, looks rather familiar. This Sunday, the San Francisco 49ers will be playing at the Arizona Cardinals. The spread is eerily similar to last week's spread, where the Arizona Cardinals are 6.5-point favorites over the San Francisco 49ers. Gentlemen, the question is, do you take that bet? Raymond, we start with you.
I think if they come in with the same type of mentality that they're going to force the run down their throat, then they haven't learned anything from Pittsburgh. It's very possible, with Arizona riding very high, Carson Palmer playing at a very high level, that they could come out on top here. This is a scary one because I don't know what Niners to expect next week. I don't know which version is going to come out, and this is a tough one. I hate to go against it, but you know what? I think you got to take that bet based on what we've seen last week, because I'm not sure if the Niners have enough pass rush and enough grit to withstand the passing attack of the Arizona Cardinals. 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. Odds are squarely in Arizona's favor as they're riding the high road on first place in the NFC West. So it's very difficult to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, this section faithful You have to understand, we're just talking money betting lines. This doesn't.
Yeah, as far as betting
this.
goes, it's a pretty good bet. I mean, to be fair, they played New Orleans and Chicago. Those are both teams that are probably going to be under 500 this season. So these are teams that are not as potent as they were maybe 3 years ago. So
and division games are always harder.
That is something to consider. I mean, they have a pretty soft schedule. With the exception of the Rams, the Rams, Detroit, Pittsburgh coming up next. They had a pretty soft opening schedule.
Old Man Davis, Arizona 6.5-point favorites. Do you take that bet?
Coach Bruce Arians, Carson Palmer, and that first-place Arizona Cardinals are a very well-balanced offense. This is like the Steelers game. Another challenge for not only the San Francisco defense, but the offense to scramble for some consistent drives that produces touchdowns and scores early. The Cardinals proved tough for the 49ers last season in the 2 times they've met. Yet this season's team's slightly different because you have Andre Ellington that's out indefinitely with a sprained knee, and I see Chris Johnson touching that ball up to 20 times. Is the San Francisco 49er defense ready for that one? Larry Fitzgerald and John Brown are nowhere near the level of an Antonio Brown, but I predict strong contributions from the both of them.
Larry Fitzgerald's definitely in his twilight, and Chris Johnson and Andre Ellington, neither of them topped 100 yards in their first 2 contests. I mean, Arizona is a pure passing team. They're kind of remind me of the New England Patriots, that kind of sprinkle in running here and there, but very much rely on Carson Palmer's arm to get the job done.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember this being a debate, boys. I'm not done. All right, the Cardinals defense held one of the league's top back, Matt Forte, to just 61 yards, and I expect the run defense to challenge Carlos Hyde to 100 or less
Their
yards.
rushing defense is good. I mean, first of all, Matt Forte is also in his twilight of his career. However, to be fair to what you're saying, they do rank 10th in the league, and they have an average of holding opponents to 81.5 yards. So they're holding opponents for sure. But the one thing to note is that their passing defense is 28th in the league, and they're just 10 yards shy of allowing 300 yards per passing game. So once again, we are faced with a similar scenario where they are exposed secondary.
Okay, apparently nobody's listening to me when I'm talking.
Old Man Davis,
I'm just going to say, I like the Cardinals in this match. I say they go 3-0 by week 3. And they cover the spread easy.
They got to come out Niners have to come out passing if they want a chance. They can't just force feed the run here. You got to set up the run with the pass this time. You cannot do it the opposite way because Cardinals will be ready just like Pittsburgh.
Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this Goldcast, you want to make some money in Vegas? Follow Old Man Davis. I can't disappoint you. My record will show for it. 2-1.
Hey, if Raymond's right, he's also 2-1. This is your battle, gentlemen. This is the cross you two must bear. Raymond, where can they find us?
They can find us on iTunes. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. You can find us at the 49ers Gold Cash on iTunes. Subscribe there. That way you'll be on top of the latest and greatest when we publish live. You can also find us on Twitter at the 49ers Goldcast, as well as Facebook. Like us on Facebook, too. We love those likes. And maybe you'll get a fan shout-out. You can find us on www.facebook.com/49ers Goldcast. And you can find me at Ray Solis on Twitter, as well as Instagram at Ray Solis1. Where can they find you, gentlemen?
They can find me both on Instagram and Twitter at Rudy Solis III, RUDYSOLIS 3RD at Rudy Solis III. Don't forget to follow me. I'll follow you back. Subscribe. We are also now on Stitcher, gentlemen. Not only can you find our podcast on iTunes, you can also find us on Stitcher. That's our brand new one. Check us out on Stitcher. Old Man Davis, where can they find you?
They can find me in California, in a city near you.
Well, there you go.
No ad sign associated with that.
No ad sign associated with that. So concludes another edition of the 49er Goldcast. We are the Bay Area Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the First, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Old Man Davis.
Bam! We'll see you next week. Same Goldcast time, same Goldcast channel.